You have been getting up 3, sometimes 4 times every single night. You have started planning your days around bathrooms without even noticing you are doing it. Before you leave the house, some quiet part of your mind already knows where every restroom will be along the way. And somewhere in the last few years, without ever deciding it on purpose, you made a choice. You chose to simply live with this, because the alternative, the surgery, frightens you far more than the suffering does. I want to tell you tonight, gently but honestly, that this choice, the choice to wait and to endure in silence, may be the most dangerous decision you are making for your health right now. I am Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura. For more than 30 years I have worked in internal medicine and in the care of older adults, and in that time I have sat across from hundreds of men who carried this exact fear. They did not speak it aloud. Men almost never do. But I could see it in the way they lowered their eyes when the subject came near, and I have watched, again and again, what happens to the men who allow that fear to make their decisions for them. So let me speak to you plainly tonight, the way I would if you were sitting across from me in my office, with the door closed and no one else in the room. What most people do not realize is that the fear itself has become the illness. The surgery these men imagine when they lie awake at night is not the surgery that actually exists today. They are picturing something their own father went through many decades ago. They are remembering a story a neighbor told them once, described in frightening detail, about a man who was never the same afterward. And so they wait, they endure, and while they wait, something quiet and genuinely serious is unfolding inside the body, night after night, that almost no one has explained to them. Let me walk you through it, carefully, because when you truly understand the mechanism, your fear will begin to change shape. Before I do, I want to remind you of something I told you once before, when I explained the truth about heart procedures. The fear of the treatment is very often more dangerous than the treatment itself. I want you to hold that thought close as we go through this together, because it is the heart of everything I am about to tell you. There are 3 beliefs that keep good, careful, intelligent men trapped in years of unnecessary suffering. I want to take each one apart, slowly and gently, so that nothing frightening remains hidden in the corners. The first belief is that prostate surgery means cancer. I want you to hear this clearly, because it may be the single most important thing I say tonight. Most prostate procedures have nothing to do with cancer at all. They treat a condition called benign enlargement. The word benign means exactly what it sounds like it should mean. It is not cancer. It does not become cancer. An enlarged prostate and a cancerous prostate are 2 entirely different things, and one does not quietly transform into the other simply because you waited too long. This is the part that rarely gets explained. Many men hear the single word prostate, and their mind leaps immediately to the worst possibility they can imagine. That leap, that instant private panic, is what stops them from ever asking the simple question that could give them their nights and their peace back. Let me stay with this first misconception a moment longer, because it deserves your full attention. As a man ages, it is extraordinarily common, almost expected, for the prostate to grow larger. This is not a sign of disease in the frightening sense. It is closer to the way hair turns gray, or skin loses some of its firmness. It is a change that comes with the passing years. The enlargement causes the symptoms you are living with, but the enlargement itself is not a threat to your life the way you fear it is. When you separate those 2 ideas in your mind, when you truly understand that the trouble in the night and the word cancer are not the same thing, a great weight begins to lift. Now let me show you what this enlargement actually does inside the body, because the mechanism is simple and clear once you can see it. I want you to picture a garden hose carrying water. Your prostate sits wrapped around the narrow tube that carries urine out of the body, the way a closed hand wraps around a hose. When the prostate is healthy and normal in size, the hand rests loosely and the water flows freely. But as the prostate slowly enlarges with age, that hand begins to tighten. The opening narrows. The stream weakens. This is precisely why the water no longer flows the way it did when you were younger. It is not a weakness of your will. It is not simply old age in some vague, hopeless sense. It is a real physical squeezing, slow and steady, happening a little more each year. And here is the part that almost no one has told you, the part I want you to pay close attention to. When that tube is squeezed and narrowed, your bladder cannot simply empty the way it should. It has to push harder. Imagine a muscle forced to strain against resistance every single day, every single hour, for years on end. Over time, that muscle thickens, it grows stiff, and eventually it begins to fail at the one job it was built to do. In the more serious cases, the pressure has nowhere to go and begins to travel backward, up toward the kidneys themselves. So the blockage you have been quietly ignoring, the one you decided to simply live with, is not merely an inconvenience of the night. It is a slow, silent mechanical strain on organs that you cannot afford to lose. That is the true cost of waiting, and it is a cost paid in silence. This brings me to the second belief, and it is the one that men fear the most deeply, though they will almost never say it out loud to another living soul. The fear is that the surgery will leave you in diapers, that you will lose control of your own body, that you will lose your dignity, and perhaps the intimacy you share with your wife along with it. I want you to know that I understand this fear completely. I do not dismiss it. It is a real fear about real things that matter enormously to a man's sense of himself. But I also want you to know exactly where that fear comes from, because its origin is the key to setting it down. That fear was earned by techniques that are now decades old. The frightening reputation belongs to a version of this surgery that most physicians simply no longer perform in the same way. Medicine did not stand still. It moved forward, quietly and steadily, year after year, while the old stories stayed frozen in the memories of the men who heard them. The modern procedures are far gentler than what your father experienced, and their outcomes are simply not the outcomes your fear is built upon. You are afraid of a surgery that has largely been left behind. I want you to pay attention here, because this next part matters a great deal. Many of the most common modern procedures work through the body's own natural opening. In many cases, there is no large incision at all. The surgeon reaches the area through the passage that already exists, and reduces or removes the excess tissue that has been squeezing the tube closed. Recovery for a great many men is measured in a small number of days, not in long and painful months. The catastrophe you have been imagining in the dark, the one that has kept you silent and suffering, belongs to another era of medicine entirely. The third belief is quieter than the others, but it holds men just as firmly. It is the thought that at my age, it simply is not worth it. I have heard these exact words from men in their 70s more times than I could ever count, and I understand the reasoning behind them completely. Why go through anything at all, a man asks himself, if the years ahead already feel uncertain and few? But let me tell you what I have observed with my own eyes across 3 decades of practice. Recovery in the 70s is very often faster than men expect it to be, because the body still responds, still heals, still repairs itself when you give it the right conditions to do so. The idea that an older body cannot recover is another story that is simply not true. And while a man tells himself it is not worth it, the untreated blockage does not pause out of respect for his age. It does not slow down or grow kind. It continues its slow damage to the bladder and to the kidneys, silently, faithfully, every single night that he chooses to wait. The waiting is not neutral. The waiting is not safe. The waiting is itself a decision with consequences, even though it feels like doing nothing at all. If any of this sounds familiar to you, if you recognize yourself in these words, if you have quietly organized your entire life around this problem without ever telling anyone, I would like you to write the word yes in the comments below. I read them, every one, and it helps me understand how many of you are carrying this same weight in silence, believing you are the only one. Now I want to tell you about a man I will call Thomas. He was 74 years old, a proud and deeply private man, the kind who would never dream of troubling anyone with his own difficulties. He had reached the point where he mapped every errand, every outing, every visit around the location of the nearest bathroom. He had quietly begun sleeping in a separate room from his wife of many years, not because of any distance between their hearts, but because he did not want his waking, again and again through the long night, to disturb her rest. He told himself he was protecting her, and he had not told even her, the person closest to him in all the world, just how bad it had truly become. He believed, deep in his bones, that surgery would be the end of his dignity as a man. What finally brought Thomas through my door was a fear of a different and sharper kind. One night he found that he could barely pass water at all. Almost nothing would come. That frightening episode, that near complete blockage, was what finally carried him across the threshold he had avoided for so many years. This is exactly the kind of moment I warn men about, because it did not have to reach that point. He was evaluated carefully and properly. He was found to be a good candidate, and he underwent one of the modern, gentle procedures. He was home again quickly, and a few nights later, Thomas slept through the entire night, from evening until morning, for the first time in 6 years. When I saw him afterward, he said something to me that I have never forgotten and never will. He looked at me quietly and told me that he did not get his prostate fixed. He got his life back. That is the phrase that stays with me. Not the procedure, not the medicine, but the life that returned to him, the sleep, the presence, the quiet dignity he thought he had lost forever. Now I want to be very careful and very honest with you, because you deserve nothing less. I am not telling you that surgery is right for every man. It is not. That decision belongs to you and to your own urologist, made together with your particular situation and your particular body in front of both of you. This conversation we are having tonight is preparation for that meeting. It is not a replacement for it. I want you to walk into that room informed and calm, not frightened, but I do not want you to walk into surgery on my word. I want you to walk into a real conversation with the physician who knows you. And there are certain signs that mean you must not wait for any video, mine or anyone else's. If you see blood in your urine, if you have real pain, or if you suddenly find you cannot pass water at all, you go to a doctor immediately. Those are not things to sit and think over for a few weeks. And every decision about screening for cancer belongs with your own physician, the one who holds your history in his hands. Please hear me clearly on that. So let me give you the practical path forward, and I want you to see it as a ladder, not a cliff. This distinction matters. A cliff is a single terrifying drop. A ladder is a series of small, manageable steps, each one taken only if it is needed. The first step on that ladder is almost always medication, not surgery at all. Many men improve at this stage alone, and never need to climb any higher. If medication is not enough, then there are the gentle modern procedures I described, such as removing the excess tissue through the natural opening, or using focused light to reduce it. Each step is only a single step, considered calmly, one at a time, alongside a doctor who knows you well. No one is ever pushed off an edge. You move up the ladder only as far as your own body requires, and not one rung further. But the very first real step is smaller and simpler than any medication or procedure. It is simply to name the problem out loud. To stop pretending that the weak stream, the endless waking in the night, the feeling that you can never quite finish emptying, are things you must silently accept as your fate. They are not signs of weakness in you. They are signals from your body, and signals exist to be listened to, not buried in shame. The body has a remarkable ability to respond when you give it the right conditions, even in the 8th decade of life, even later than that. I have seen it happen so many times that I no longer think of it as surprising. The men I have watched walk out of this suffering are not different men afterward. They are the same men they always were, only now they are sleeping through the night, present with their families, free at last from the invisible map they had been living by for years. That freedom is still available to you tonight. Fear told you the door was dangerous. But very often, as I have shown you, it is the waiting that carries the real danger. If this brought you some measure of clarity or peace tonight, please subscribe to this channel and leave a like so that another man carrying this same burden in silence might find these words too. You may help someone you will never meet. In a coming video, I want to talk with you about something almost everyone dismisses as ordinary and harmless, the simple headache, and what it can sometimes quietly reveal about what is happening deeper inside. Until then, take good care of yourself, and give yourself permission to have the honest conversation you have been avoiding for far too long. You have earned the years ahead of you. You deserve to live them fully present, well rested, and on your own terms.